Hello everyone, this is I Sleep Too Late, and in this video presentation, I'm going to be going over the statistical analysis that we conducted on our first cEDH League season. What is cEDH? cEDH stands for Competitive EDH or Competitive Commander. It is a competitive format in Magic the Gathering, which is a trading card game. And we're going to be focusing on the rating distribution as well as turn order effects. I am your presenter. I sleep too late, and I want to give a personal shout out to Ethereum Slinky, who is also authored on this paper. We are going to be publicizing the paper on GitHub, and I'm also going to be posting it on Reddit as well. So there's two big questions that we have to ask ourselves. The first one is, how is skill distributed in our league? How much or how important is skill in the process of a cEDH game? Many people will say, oh, you got lucky, or oh, that was all luck, or you top decked really well, right? Well, we want to talk about this in an academic fashion. How important or how much skill difference exists between players? And does the rating system that we use actually work? The second question that we have to ask ourselves is, does turn order matter? People say going first is an advantage. Well, how much of an advantage is it? And is it statistically significant as well? I want to go over league stats real quick. So there's 358 valid games that were studied over the course of 56 days. The league started from September 5th and ended in November 7th. There were 81 registered players and 51 active players that played at least 5 games minimum or more. So in order to be an active player or to be, I guess, in with the rest of the crew and show up on the end season list, you had to have played at least 5 games minimum, because we don't really want people to be like, oh, I won 2 games and then I'm out, right? And then they stay as the number one player for forever. We didn't want that to happen. And so what did we use? We used Open Skill. We actually used cEDH Skill, which is a ranking Discord ranking bot that I created that utilizes Open Skill. And Open Skill is a non-proprietary ranking system that has an ELO conversion that we developed that basically rates multiplayer games, players of 3 or more players, basically. So, chess is a 1-to-1, 1v1, and a lot of games that are ranked are 1v1. But this was our way of kind of figuring out if there's a way to rank players or give players a rating if they were playing a game that was 4 or more players. We're going to focus on 4 players, of course, but I just wanted to give you that heads up about that was what Open Skill was. Chi-square analysis is what we're going to be talking about when it comes to turn order analysis, and we also used Python. This is a very not so accurate slide. I'll tell you what happened. In the beginning of the season, there was a discrepancy with how the bot that I created was ranking people and giving people ratings. People's ratings were changing. People's ratings were going up and down. They were increasing when they were losing games. They were going down when they were winning games. And it was kind of the Wild West, so to speak. And anyone who was part of this experience knows exactly what I'm talking about. So that's why you see a huge surge in games in the early stages. But of course, even after I submitted all those games, I self-reported, I did data entry. You could still see that there were a large number of games that were played in the early stages of the ranked season. And then as you can see, it slowly died down and plateaued. Season 1 champions, shout out to Owl in Space, who was our number 1 winner. Amethyst came in second. And Grenzo, Grey Dog, Mr. Sea Snake, Madison, Jaws 8U, Raw V, Padfoot, and Legally Abyssal. These are our top 10 players. We didn't really do like a top 8 or top 4 split this season. We may consider doing that in the future. But I just wanted to give you their ELO breakdown as well as the win rate. Interestingly enough, Amethyst had a very high win rate, but Amethyst played not too many games in the ranked season. So what does this mean? Well, it means that just because you have a high win rate doesn't mean that you're going to have necessarily the top score. It really depends on how many games you've played. So Owl in Space played a significantly large number of games that eventually got them that high ELO, whereas Amethyst might not have played as many games and still won a higher percentage of their games, but again, there was not enough data to really support that. So ELO is kind of a product of your kind of like your mu score, which is your average score, how average you are to do in any given day. And sigma is like, I've been describing this like a million times, but basically it's your confidence. How confident are you with your abilities? And so we actually say the more the less the shorter number of games you played, the less confident you are, and basically the more volatile your rating will be. This is a very busy slide, but it basically contains most of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today. So the top left is the basically continuation of the, or another way to express the slide that I showed a couple slides ago. The top middle is a distribution of the ELO ratings that you can see here. And these are the players that have actually played 5 or more games. So you can see it's roughly a normal distribution, maybe a little bit skewed. And on the top right, you can see the win rate distribution of these players. Again, it's a little bit roughly a normal curve. Not exactly, but you get the point. And the bottom right shows how active players were, the distribution of that. And yes, somebody actually did play 105 games of cEDH. Kudos to that person. That is absolutely insane. And then, as you can see here, we got on the bottom right, the bottom center, we got the ELO versus win rate. The size is equal to the games that were played. And then the bottom right is where you can see the top 10 players by ELO. So you can take a look at this slide. You can take a picture of it. It basically has most or the gist of what we were talking about. And it's a pretty busy slide. Yep. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. Actually, I don't know if it talks about it in this slide. Yeah, I don't really talk about it in this slide. But going back to this slide, I just want to say that the mean ELO was 1,008. The range of the ELOs was 924 to 1,115. So there were 191 points in the range. And the standard deviation was 47 points. I don't know if that means anything to you, but basically it means that it's moderate, healthy skill stratification. All right, moving on to skill tiers. So people were wondering, what does my rating mean? Well, we did a breakdown of these ratings, and just a rough estimate of where you stand depending on what your rating was. Anything from 1100 to 1115 was top 5%. 1080 to 1099 was very strong, top 15%. 1040 to 1079, you were about above average, which means the top 40%, which is pretty good. 1000 to 130, 1000 to 1039 is about average, middle 40%. You'll see people in this rating, they're probably doing a little bit better than average, I would say. And then 960 to 999 is roughly, I would say, honestly, I kind of disagree. It's like below average, but probably around average. And 924 to 959 is developing, somebody who didn't perform as strongly in the league. And again, don't let these numbers define you. They don't define who you are. This is just a rough guideline of how you performed in the ranked season. And of course, we're going to have multiple ranked seasons. So if you didn't do that well, of course, you can do better next time. It doesn't mean anything this season. Plus, also, this was an experimental season to begin with, right? We were kind of like running rough numbers, doing some prize support here and there, testing the water, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't. The bottom line is that the system separated skill levels. All right. So why isn't everybody winning 25%? Everyone's saying, oh, this should be a 25% win rate, right? Well, no, because you have to also account for draws. It's possible that you will draw some amount of time, and you have to account for that because that means that you're going to have less than 25% of a win rate expected, right? So we had 315 games that actually had one winner. 43 games actually ended in draws. And so we did a corrected expected, which is about 22%. All right. So this is the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about today, which is, does going first actually help you win? I did a breakdown of the win percentages, and this was based on what people reported in the league. This isn't exactly what everything was, because again, we were only taking what people were reporting when they were reporting their game results. So the person going first, based on these results, won 27.7% of the time, and you can see that it goes down as you go down the totem pole. It's an 11-point spread. So Is it significant? Well, statistical significance is a completely different animal, but here are some visuals for you to look at. You can see the win rate by turn order on the left, the observed versus the expected win that you can see in the center here. Actually, so you might be wondering why is the orange not like equal? It's actually because you're doing 25% of all of those games that were reported in the player turning turn one category, turn two category, turn three category, turn four category, right? And then on the right, we have complete outcome distribution by turn order. This is win, loss, and draw. And so chi-square goodness of fit is a statistic, or one of the things that we can use to test how well does something fit in our expected results, right? So we have our observed, which is what we just showed you, and then the expected is, I guess you can say, we expect 25% of the time someone wins, right? Or whatever. So our chi-square is 3.2. The p-value, which tells us whether it's statistically significant, is greater than 0.05, which means it's not significant. This means that we fail. In statistics, we say we fail to reject the null hypothesis. But really what this means is that there's a 36% chance that the differences that were seen in this observed study are due to chance and chance alone. So that's exactly what we talked about, right? What does not significant mean? There's player variance, there's cEDH balance. You have fast combos trying to go off early versus the interaction that players have who are, kind of reacting to players trying to win. Roughly maybe 150 to 200 is probably needed for more certainty. But you also have to consider the politics of the tables. And again, we're talking about whether random seeding is fair. It likely is. I probably alluded to this in an earlier slide, but basically there is some debate. I don't think there is that much debate, but there is some, I guess, discussion or talking points about should we order people in a pod based on their seed. So players going first would probably be like the weaker player in the seed. The the better player or the player with the highest rating would probably play fourth. I don't know, something like that, right? But you can see from this data that it's not statistically significant, and it's probably still going to be fair if you give people the random chance of rolling the dice to decide who goes first. Now, 12% of games ended in a draw. I think that is something important. I think that's worth mentioning. Things that can lead to a draw are priority bullying. That is, somebody is about to go off and win. The next player has a counter spell and says, I'm going to counter this. If I counter this, I know that the person playing on my, I guess, left is going, or right, depending on what order you are. The next player will probably win the game. So can we all agree that this is a draw? Because if I counter this spell, then I would be king making, so to speak, meaning that I would decide who wins the game. Other possible scenarios, you have resource depletion. Not very likely everybody draws their deck and decks out, but of course you have stalemates, things where there's a board state that you can't really budge on. And of course we had an 80-minute time limit on these games. To be honest with you, I wasn't in every single game, so I don't know how well enforced that was. I can't really speak to that, but roughly it was 20 minutes per player. And so if the time constraints were going down and people were running out of time, maybe they decided to draw, or maybe they wanted to say, okay, you know what, whatever. I don't really know. But is this normal for cEDH? Probably, but again, we need more data as far as the 12% draw is concerned. And of course, there were limitations to our study. We're missing a lot of data. Only 31% of the games actually had turn order data because, again, that was an optional report. And there's obviously reporting bias. We didn't have anyone who could externally verify the results of these turn order statistics. And one thing that we could do that we didn't really do, although people could have done if they reported their commanders, because we had that as a feature in version 0.02 of cEDH skill, they could report which commander they were playing, and we could have actually tracked which commanders were performing well. Only a couple people actually assigned a commander to themselves, so didn't really apply here. But also, of course, selection bias. You have the top players, the players who want to play cEDH, competing and providing data to this league. Sample size obviously is an issue. We've talked about that before. But the bottom line is that the results that we have are not definitive. I don't think any research really proves anything. you can't really prove anything unless you have like significant over a long period of time stuff, right? It's not simply one study proves a theory. It takes a lot more than just that. So I mentioned some of this before. The top players won roughly 35 to 47% consistently. Skill at the end of the day mattered more than luck did. Turn order is fair. There was not a significant statistical positional advantage. Random seeding is probably what's reasonable. We can probably say it's okay to do random seeding, and we're going to continue to track for season 2, maybe season 3, however many seasons we do, right? And there was a 22% win rate, which is probably honestly about expected, about normal, right? Draws can explain the gap, less than 25%, and players did overall perform exactly as expected in this, according to the data. All right, so what is next for the future? We can look into things like deck or commander tracking. We didn't really enforce that as much. I don't think we're going to really enforce it. We can maintain turn order recording. I mean, all this stuff you can just read here. But the question that I really want to talk about is, do we combine the data from season 1 to season 2 so that there's more data? And I think that this is a debatable topic because the metagame is going to change the more cards get introduced, the more sets come out, right? So the metagame in season 1 is going to be slightly different than the metagame in season 2. Does that really speak towards definitive conclusions for turn order? Is turn order something that's constant in spite of what consists of the metagame? I don't really know. I think that's something that's interesting. If you have any thoughts about that, let me know in the comments. But what this means for the player is that you really shouldn't be focusing so much on turn order. Yeah, going first, probably you're gonna do statistically better on average, but we didn't have enough statistically significant data to say that, right? We should focus on skill development rather than luck, of course. And for organizers, it's fair to assume random seating arrangement. We've been doing this, of course, for the entirety of cEDH, so it wasn't really an issue, but it's something to at least mention here. And the current system that we are using seems to work so far. And it seems like, we're looking at some player feedback right now. It seems like we're getting some good feedback as well. And so here's a little summary about what we talked about. I want to acknowledge pretty much everyone, right? All the players who participated in this community. Thank you to the cEDH organization, the subreddit, Mox Mango for running ranked, of course, taking the lead on this because we wouldn't have been able to do it without you. Shake and Shimmy, thank you for hosting the server, for allowing us to run ranked on your server. Thank you to the administrators, Maury Lurker, who participated in, contributed to the processes. Flower for providing the artwork that was used in the playmats that were in the prize pool. Beastmark for contributing to the prize support as well, of course. We had the league moderators, including Anna, Sky, Jim Wolfie, and of course, I had to use Claude for Python scripting and statistical consultations. So you can find me on the Discord. The Discord link is in this screen here, discord.gg/cdh. Ethereum Slinky you can find on the cEDH Discord as well. We will be launching season 2. I don't really know when. I don't have an ETA on that. You'll have to ask the rest of the group. But if anyone has any questions or comments, please let me know in the comments. I'm an open book. I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. And if you have Reddit and you'd rather talk to me on Reddit, I will be posting this on Reddit as well. And you can kind of see a little bit more detail on that as well. So hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you all next time. Peace out.